Hi, I'm Kris Ward from Win the Hour, Win the Day, and you are listening to the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy from Compass Media.
Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and thank you for joining me. This is the Social Media Talks podcast, brought to you by compassmedia.ie. This is episode number 99. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, the digital mentor, and this is a podcast to help business owners who want to learn more about digital and social media marketing. And we're looking forward to today's episode. Today I'm going to be joined by an author, a podcaster, a coach and a speaker, and that is Kris Ward. And she is a leading authority on leveraging your time and scaling your business. Kris is the founder of Win the Hour, Win the Day philosophy. And after losing her husband, Kris returned full-time to her work as a marketing strategist. She was relieved that her business had not only survived her absence, but had also grown. Now Kris has completely changed the landscape for entrepreneurs by sharing her successful practices that allowed her absence. Kris helps entrepreneurs create their win team, what is next, so that they can get to what is next. She has also implemented the 60-40 win formula, so you can be in execution mode 60% of the time. And remember, execution equals revenue. So without further ado, I think we will transition straight over to the interview with Kris. And we shall talk to her all about winning back 25 hours a week, and also about winning the hour and winning the day. So without further ado, let us transition straight over to the interview. Hi Kris, how are you? And thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast. It's a pleasure to have your company, and I'm so looking forward to chatting with you. How are you today?
Oh, I'm excellent. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
And it's great to have you. And of course, we're going to be talking all about getting 25 hours a week back. And I like that idea. When I seen that immediately, I was automatically stressed. Oh, I'm in. I want this. And it's all about winning the hour and winning your day as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit more detail. But before we go any further, for people who don't know you, which I find it hard to believe at this stage, maybe you might give us a little bit of a background on yourself first before we get stuck into our chosen topic.
Sure, no problem. And I think that's a great question, Alan, because so many people just think, oh, maybe you're organized or you do this. And you know what? Listen, actually being organized kind of works against you because you just reorganize yourself. And I did that for years, right? Kind of think, well, I get more done than anybody else. So clearly there's just too much work. And that's how I lived the first couple of years I was in business. Almost 15 years ago now, as a marketing strategist, I worked insane hours. It was like 16 hours a day. And my husband was saying that I was constantly stealing from sleep. Like I'd just get up earlier and earlier and stay later and later. And that was my recipe. Go fast, go hard, and just get through it, right? So I realized about 2 years in, Alan, that I was starting to be a bit edgy and not as charming as I thought, because you're just exhausted all the time, right? And it has its toll on your personality. So I realized I couldn't live like that, for another 10 years, because I was starting to lose favors with friends and family. So I really went from working 16 hours a day down to 6. And that did not happen overnight, Alan. That's a whole story in itself. But let me move the story forward nonetheless. So after I did that, and luckily I did, Alan, because it was a couple of years after that my husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer. Right. And I had been pulled away from the business for about 2 years. And when I returned after his passing, my existing clients had no idea of my absence. And it was just not how we navigated his journey. We were very positive in nature. I just didn't need that kind of attention. And so people started to come up and talk to me about, the fragility of life and say, Kris, if you could be away and we didn't know that, like the local business community didn't know what was going on, anything, they're like, then maybe you could help me so that I could get to my kids' soccer game. And so I could stop working Sundays when my family's doing things, right? And that's how it started. And I just realized as I started working with these people that so many of you guys out there are working in isolation because you are the last person to go to bed after everyone's gone to bed in your family. That addiction, you're going to try to get a few more emails ahead of tomorrow. And so I realized how isolated everybody was. And that's where I wrote the book, Win the Hour, Win the Day. And that's where coaching came into play. And we've got private, semi-private, now the winner's circle. So that's how it all unfolded, Alan.
Wow, and I think it's so important. Like, and I totally agree, because we do. We, as you say, you say, "Oh, I'll just send that last email," and then all of a sudden it's 2 hours later, and it's 3 hours later, and then you're chasing, you're like, it's lack of sleep, it's everything. It all rolls into one. Whereas I think if you can structure and plan and understand I suppose the systems or the mechanisms or whatever it is, to be able to go and to do that and to structure that day, and as you say, is win the hour, win the day. And I love that, because I just think that is it just says it. It's it says exactly what it does in the tin, but it's really, really powerful, because I think we do, if we can win an hour here and there, we're sort of delighted with ourselves. But if we can win a lot more of it and be more productive, I think it's so incredibly important.
Yeah, business should be fun. We all had jobs that wore us out, or we didn't like, or were repetitive, and we left that for a reason, right? So I really am passionate about a business that supports your life instead of consuming it. And you use keywords, Alan, like, be productive and be structured. And all those sound very restrictive. And then you're like, what are you talking about? I have to do 4 things at the same time to get through this day. And that was my plan to everything. I'm what I call a recovering rushaholic. I just went fast, get out of my way. So I was a recovering rushaholic. And really what we do now when we work with people in our winner's circle is we focus on 3 elements, like a bar stool. We think of the 3 pillars are team, time, and toolkits. And so many people don't understand that what you need is a team. A team can be one other person, but it's setting up what we call a win team, a what is next team. And what that does is allows you to get to what is next, because the whole thing with entrepreneurs is really about getting ideas to execution. That's where the revenue comes. That's where the growth, that's where the joy of having your own business, ideas to execution. And most people are constantly trapped in the web of admin, but we believe in the win formula, where you should be in 60% execution mode, and then the rest is admin, right? Where normally that is like nowhere close. And so when you're in execution mode, oh my heavens, you just have a bigger impact. You just get more reward. You just all this stuff, but you do need a team, even one other person, to help you with that. And what happens, Alan, is so many people get this completely wrong, and they're using it based on their employment history, their school history. It's what I call a very parentified system. So you hire somebody, and now you're leaning over, taking a look at what they're doing and checking on them, like a parent to a child, like a teacher to a student. And that just creates another job for you. So then you start to go, okay, Kris, you know what? I can just do this faster doing it myself, get out of my way, back to being a recovering rushaholic. Whereas when you follow the win formula, not only are you in 60% execution mode, but so is your team, because your team has to have that bandwidth on their calendar to help you move forward to your next ambition.
Yeah, it's so important. I get that. And I'm a firm believer, as you say, if you hire someone, or you take someone on, or you become part, you take on a team, that you do that, because you're sort of saying, oh, well, it's not as good as the way I do it. But I think as well as that, there's a lot to do there with trust. And is also, I suppose, the other big part, and what I'm getting from this conversation is that letting go a bit. And just, sharing that workload, and then being able to be more in that productive mode, as opposed to being that, I have 101 things to do and I don't have enough time. I get my PA, my VA, whatever it is, or that part of that team in, and let them do it. But then you sort of say, well, I won't let go of it that much. But I think if you, as you say, it's going by your system and this whole, I suppose, philosophy, it works. And it does, and you've proved it, like in what you've done already.
Yeah, so you bring up some really key words, letting go, delegating, all that stuff. So that's a very lateral move. That's a lateral way of thinking. And most entrepreneurs are trained to think like that, because that's how they grew up in the employee world. Wherever you were in the corporate world, that's how it's done. So what I would say to you is, people say, oh, what if they can't do it as good as myself? And I think you've got to be kidding me. And that's my passion on that, is because, first of all, I don't care how good you are at anything, no matter what your area of expertise is. There's a lot of pre and post-production work to anything that we do. So I would argue that, I'm constantly, you'll hear me talk about Kazel. She's like on our team, and she's this spreadsheet wizard. I have like space in my head where math is, like breezes and things, tumbleweeds just blow around there. So I used to think spreadsheets to me look like math, and it's, but Kazel makes these spreadsheets that can give me an intense amount of information, and they're beautiful pieces of art. And I look at something really quick and everything is there. And I couldn't make a spreadsheet. When I try to make a change on the spreadsheet, it's like I'm typing with my elbows. Like, it's just ridiculous. So what I would say is it's a very narrow view. If you are looking through your business of all the things you could do, you don't even know what other talents people can bring in, and that they can amplify you so you stay in that zone of genius. But I know we've all done this where I think, oh, I have to learn about SEO, or I have to learn about this. So I'll learn about that at 7:00 at night when I'm exhausted, when it's not even my zone of genius, right? But when you bring on somebody who's crazy good at it, and for like pennies, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. I suppose you're right. I'm not suppose you're right. You are right. I think it's also, we have to sort of look at things differently. And I think that's what you're saying here is because we've always done the same. We've always been, as you say, it's gone from your corporate background to your solo, to your entrepreneurial. Whereas now you sort of have to go, no, hold on. Let's reframe this. Let's look at this in a different way. And I think with what you're saying here is, well, what we're talking really about is that reframing, and just going, okay, well, let's take off the guards and let's go and see where we're going with this and how we're going to go with this.
Yeah, because if it's just you're what I call a sufferpreneur. You don't have a business, right? And you can't leverage it. You can't make a bigger impact. And it reminds me of somebody I had on my podcast, Win the Hour, Win the Day podcast. And it's just general business. We could talk about anything from social media to sales, whatever. And we had a gentleman on, and he talked affectionately of his father. It was a very pivotal point in his life. And his father was this carpenter that was well sought after. And people waited sometimes 6-8 months to get one of his tables, and they were thousands of dollars, right? And when his father retired, he closed the barn and sold his tools. Here's a hammer for $10. Here's this. Well, he could have had a team that, even if he supervised the craftsmanship, or here's the pre, or here's the post work, and I just approved the table, or whatever, he could have funneled that down so that could have went on without him, or he could have supervised it one day a week or whatever. He could have had a revenue or he could have had a business he could sell. He couldn't sell himself. That's being an employee. Yeah. So he just sold like a hammer that made tables worth thousands of dollars. He sold that hammer for like $10. Yeah. And I would argue, no matter what you do, there is a pre and post production to it that you can funnel down. It reminds me of another example, Alan, if you bear with me, I'll give you this one. We had a client, she came to us and she was a designer, and she said, Kris, you don't understand. I walk into a room, I'm an interior designer. I see stuff, I move it around. I just see it. I see it when I'm there. Nobody else can help me. I can't have a team. It's just quicker for me to move that table and create the process. It's a very creative process. And I said, okay. So we started working with Sue, and we looked and we said, well, how long is your average meeting? So it was about 2 hours. So we started working with her in over a couple of months, and we helped her build her win team, because we do that. We help you hire, train on board in the winner's circle. And what happened was we got her appointments down to about 45 minutes, because there was all these things that she thought was connected to her work, but they were more administrative. She thought they had to be done by her because it was about this subject, but really it was repetitive work. So her appointments got down to about 45 minutes. And so then she started compacting her morning appointments with actual physical appointments doing interior design. And then she started doing all these very large, impressive speaking gigs with like well-known celebrities from HGTV and all this stuff on interior design. And she really making an impact on the industry. And she said, Kris, I couldn't have done that in a million years, because she was just slugging it out, running from appointment to appointment all day. So she thought nobody could help her, because you don't understand, I'm a designer. And yet we were able to. So that's where I want you to change your thinking is, you think you have to do everything. Sure you can, but you're a sufferpreneur, and it's a hard game to play.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, as you say, it's when you look at things like that, and like that lady where you're able to say, okay, well, there's a lot of stuff there that you're doing that you don't have to do, which will reduce that time and will give you a bit more freedom. And I've noticed that even with myself, like I do it a lot now. I used to say, okay, I'm going to spend 6 hours, I'm going to spend 4 hours doing this, and I'll look at it after doing it, and I go, hold on here, I didn't need to do that, and that. So maybe next time I'm going to knock that out, or I'm going to reduce that a small bit. And like that, it takes less time. It's, you know, it's like when we started the podcast, I originally was doing, you know, post-production, editing, all that. Now I sort of outsource it. And now all of a sudden I'm not tied up with that, and I can now go and speak to wonderful people like yourself and spend that time and not be having to say, oh, well, I have to get the podcast out, or I have to do. So I think it's about, as you say, it's about just change, and don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah. 100%. And it reminds me of what we call the 3Ds. I call the damaging overhead, delayed income, diminished opportunity. And damaging overhead is, if you could, Alan, even sell one of your services, let's say for $100, then at night when you're doing something at 5:00 at night, you're working on that, you're now billing your company $100 because you should be doing activities that bring in revenue. So you're not bringing in that revenue. You're over here doing admin work, and you should be bringing in more revenue. So that you're billing your company that $100 that would have been a potential client. So that's your damaging overhead. Delayed income. I ask you, Alan, how much does it cost your company when you got a client in June that you could have got in January, right? And now think if they gave you one referral, just one, how much does that cost you? So we got damaging overhead, delayed income, and then diminished opportunity. And I think this is the most painful one of them all, because they say, oh, Alan, I wish I'd known you did that, because we just hired somebody, we just locked into a contract, right? And then think of the lifetime value of that client, Alan, because you just were busy doing the busy work, caught up in the web of admin when you should have been in execution mode 60% of the time.
Yeah, I get that totally. And I think there is, I think you'll always get that in business. Oh, if I had known you only 3 months ago when we were looking for this, and then all of a sudden, and that's what spurred me on to create. We have, with Compass Media, we have a thing called Marketing in a Box, which was designed specifically for that, because so people can come to one place. They're not saying, oh, well, do you do this? Oh no, I have to go to someone else. It was, the whole idea is that you say, no, here you go. It's all here. It's everything's here that you need. You just pick from what you want from it. And then it has been a huge success and a huge model for the business as well. So I see your point in that. And I think that's key to this, and it, as I suppose the other side of that is also helps you to accelerate your business and build it and increase that revenue and increase that, at the end of the day, that's what we're in this game for, is to make money and to be happy and to, have a better lifestyle, and also to see our business grow and enjoy it. When we think about it.
100%. And that's what we call our super toolkit. Sometimes people get confused and think it's similar to a SOP, a standard operating procedure. But those are never written for, by the end user. They're static in nature, and they're usually written to cover liability. Where our super toolkits, it's all about making it more and more consistent and efficient. So often what will take us, take 15 steps, we can now get down to 8, or something that took me an hour to do now only takes me 30 minutes. And it also uses up less brain power. So people see that as limiting, but it's actually the extreme opposite. It's very liberating and very freeing, because I don't use brain power to do those things. I don't have to remember, because the human brain, if you have to remember 7 things, you'll remember 4, but they'll be rotating 4. Yeah. So, even whatever, something as basic as hopping on this wonderful podcast with you, I check my super toolkit. I have to, shut off my phone. I have to shut down Skype. I have to do this, make sure I have water, whatever. And I just go through the list. So I don't be like, oh, right, I forgot to turn that off, just little things like that. So it's always, and then also you can build on that consistency. So when I come up with a new idea with my team, something for the winner's circle, or how we're posting, when we're now starting to post these really great behind the scenes stuff to show them how we build our business. And we have a super toolkit for that. So I come up with an idea and I say, okay, well, let's add this extra step to the super toolkit. But because everyone is trained to follow that, then you implement something new tomorrow and it's done on a dime. There's no learning curve. There's no, we do this now, but we forgot that. So our clients, where you, I know you were super impressed with our clients tell us all the time, within working with us within the first month, they get 25 hours back a week. And I would lean heavily into, that's a big part of the super toolkits, and then helping them create their win team.
Yeah. And I think as well as that, when you say about getting that 25 hours back a week, I suppose it breathes into your psyche. It sort of gives you that space to breathe, to enjoy it. And you know what I mean? It's like...
To create.
Yeah, to
right?
be...
Because that's what you're here for,
totally,
right?
Totally. It's totally being creative and being productive and being able to say, okay, because I know up to a couple of years ago, I was saying, right, I have to build a business and I'm doing this and I'm running here and I'm going to that and I have to put that out and I have to... And it was just like, I kept going. And then... really through the COVID, it sort of made me step back and sort of think and say to yourself, okay, what's more important here? Is it about enjoying it, or are you just, I had Mark Schaefer on the podcast a while back, and he said to me, and it was something that sort of stuck with me, he says, as long as you're working in the business, you'll never own the business. He says, you're supposed to enjoy your business. You're supposed to, you are the business. So it's like... You go, bang, it's light bulb moments like that, and like what you're saying here today, it just brings it to the forefront.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in there. You didn't start a business just to run a business.
Yeah,
That's not why you started it. And you get caught up in that, right? So you did not start a business just to run a business. Yeah,
as you said, he says there's a difference if you all the time working in the business, you're an employee. Yeah. But he says if you work on the business, you're now the owner. You're now the person. It's one of those things that you sort of go, yeah, that's so true. And a lot of this, of what you're saying, is actually just, I think it's just standing back and taking a different viewpoint on it and actually analysing it and understanding and saying, okay, it doesn't have to be this hard. But I think we're conditioned into that way of thinking that we have to do this, because we're solo entrepreneurs, that we do this. As you said, as we said earlier on, it's part of what we are taught. Well, it's what in our heads has said. But I think, as you say, it's when you just stand back from it and you go, hold on, and you talk to someone like Kris Ward and you go, yeah, that works. So that's that's part of it. What I'm sitting there thinking,
Yeah, I think what happens too is, listen, we're all trained that there's nothing better you can say about somebody than, oh, they work hard. I remember saying to my mother, oh my heavens, who knew I'd have to learn not to work so hard? Like, this is crazy, right? And it happens because even when with me or with my clients in the winner circle, when you start not being in that frantic rushaholic mode, then you start to feel guilty, like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving work, because I believe you should start work refreshed and leave fresh. So then you think, well, I still feel really good. It's 5 o'clock. I should probably stay an extra hour. Like, it's like a little bit of an addiction here, right? And so what I would argue too is, a lot of times people think, I know I did for years, oh, I can't afford help. And you think once you get to a certain level of success, then you'll bring on help. But it's like trying to climb a mountain by yourself. You'll never get to the top of the mountain. You need the help to get there. And it kind of reminds me, Alan, way back when I was starting out as a marketing strategist and I was going to physical appointments, because I switched to Skype virtual appointments long before anybody else, because I realized I could do like appointments back to back. Whereas even if they were down the street, I had to include time for travel or wait for them to come out of their office, blah, blah, blah. But many years ago, when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, I would be in physical appointments sitting down with somebody and they'd be asking me questions and I'd be making notes and boom, boom, boom. And what would happen is, if I was lucky, Alan, I would get back to my office, and if I was lucky, I'd get the notes in that Friday. If I wasn't lucky, sometimes it was next Friday. And what would happen is they might call and ask me a question about the package. And because everyone was very unique and different when you're dealing with marketing. And my notes were meant to last like 20 minutes, not 2 weeks. So then I'd be scrambling and they could hear the tension in my voice, or what if I made a mistake and it looked like I misquoted them? Half the time I undercut it myself. But if I looked like I gave them the wrong price, I'd look like I was trying to swindle them. But in fact, I just was rushing and didn't have these notes. So I said, I can't live like this. So at the time I found a transcriptionist, and this was my first hire. And so I found somebody that when I left the meeting, I sat in the car and I just talked into the audio for like 30 seconds and I very detailed, conclusive notes, and she put them up into our database within 24 hours. Now, some weeks I needed her for a bunch of meetings. Other weeks I needed her for none. But this was the only thing she did. And she really, I don't understand it, but she really liked doing it. So the weeks I needed her for a lot of hours, it might cost me $12. So then I got all of Friday afternoon back, I had notes that were clear. I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't misquote. I didn't irritate or put off a potential client for $12.
Yeah.
So that's what I want people to understand is it's not about like, look, when people say, when do you start building a team? Well, the moment you think you're going to start your own business. And again, I'm all about a very lean team. I'm not talking about 10 people or anything crazy like that. But I'm here to tell you, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of now, when versus if, but certainly now. And that's another mistake people make is they think, oh, I can't afford it, or I can't manage it, or all these things. And I'm here to tell you, if you can afford a cup of coffee, you can afford to have somebody help you.
But I think that's a vicious circle, like where people come and they say, "Oh, I can't afford to have someone on," and you go, "Okay, right, well," and this is how I always justify something like this: is I go, "Okay, you can't afford to have a person there to pay them to do that." Okay, well, okay, if you had a person there, would that free you up to go out and find more business to be able to pay that person? Yes, it would. And you make a return on that investment of your time of going out and talking to people. So you're winning on both sides. So, and I think, like I've spoken, a good friend of mine who is they started up business last year and they now have a VA. And this girl lives in a different country and whatever. But the same token, and this is where it comes into effect, is he has been so much more productive. And I've seen him doing, and he's even said it, he says, I am so much more productive and there's more business coming in because I'm not wasting my time sitting down trying to write a piece of content, create a graphic, whatever it may be. And I think that's where, as you say, having a team, it automatically feeds in and people start to say, oh, why didn't I do this years ago?
Yeah, that's what my clients say to me all the time. Oh, Kris, you should have been louder. You should have been out there more. Why was I suffering for so many years? And what I would say, though, another mistake that so often people make is they realize, okay, I'm running out of control. I'm running around. I'm out of control. Everything's crazy. I'll get a VA. And then and I hear this a lot. Oh, I thought she'd come in or he'd come in and organize me. And I'm like, that's like asking somebody to parent up.
Yeah.
Like they can't come in and say, Alan, I have spoken to you 3 times in the last 3 weeks and you've not been filling out this form. We need this for the podcast guests. Like they can't manage you. Yeah. They can't do that. So then it fails because you don't have what we call our super toolkits in play. So you're just throwing stuff at them and like, here's the passwords. Oh, except on Tuesdays, it's different. Oh, and then they ask you a question like, oh, okay, it's just easier to do it myself. And they fail. And then you think, oh, I hired the wrong person, or maybe I didn't pay enough, or maybe I didn't do this. Because I would say too, that, the hiring and training and all that stuff is like a whole thing on its own. And we've been working hard on that for years. And so many people think, well, I'll just do that. And that's just something I'll do. I'm over here and I may be a marketing specialist or branding or social media expert, but I'll just hire somebody with no idea or training or background and then blame them when it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I suppose as well as that, what happens then is you lose the confidence to go and sort of say, because you've made, when in actual fact, it's really your mistake and you say, oh, well, I've lost confidence. Oh, I would never have a VA again because, they didn't do the job right. And you go, okay, well, you're feeding them the information. You need to give them the information in order for them to do their work properly. And if you don't, so I get that, and I think that's a very, very valid point. And it's a point that actually I've never thought about from speaking to people who have hired VA. And I said, are they doing that? Now it sort of makes me question and sort of say, well, okay, are they actually doing that? So really, it's quite a light bulb moment, as I would say.
Oh, good. Yay. Light bulb moment. Yay. Well, I would tell you too, but when they're set up with super toolkits, then you're in a position where you do learn from your team. Yeah. Like I just had a meeting before I hopped on with you with my team, and we were diving deeper and more purposefully into SEO and our blogs and stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, so we're learning a lot about SEO. Here's the blog. And because they're set up in a certain way and because they follow super toolkits, their work is compressed so that they're in execution mode 60% of the time. So they came to me and said, okay, Kris, we've learned this. SEMrush, we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Here's the keywords. And they said, look, Kris, these are great questions, these keywords. I think we're missing the boat. You shouldn't be writing the article and we should be finding good keywords. We should be using to write the article.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, you're right. What was I thinking? I was just taking stuff that my clients ask, or like you, Alan, somebody on a podcast, and I was writing a blog. And so because they have that bandwidth in their time, then they're not managing me, but they're in creation mode a lot of the time with me. So that's the difference.
Yeah, and they're feeding you. That's what they said. They're feeding you. As you say, it's the reverse of what you were doing before. Whereas now you're going, okay, well, what are the keywords? I'm only using this as an example.
Yeah.
What are the keywords? And you're going, oh, well, that and that. Oh, I can write a piece about that. No problem. I can reel that off to you now. And it's also as well, from that point of view, is then you sort of look at a keyword and you go, oh, hold on, I have so much material that I could talk about on this. So it gives you that creativity to give something that's valuable out to your community or out to the world or whatever it may be, wherever you're going to put this piece of content. But it's so important because now you're solving a problem. You're showing up and you're really understanding what it is that people are looking for. And I think that's a key point.
I was going to jump in because what I want people to really hear, you guys, what I want you to really hear, the story I gave you is really, and I'm passionate about this, is about a team managing me instead of me managing them.
Yeah, totally. I get that totally. I think that's great because it's really, and that, is a huge support for any entrepreneur, because to know that there's a team underneath that are going to help them and elevate them even more, I think is so good, and it builds so much confidence in every shape and form, because obviously the team are there and they feel like they are being valued because the opinions are being taken on, and then the person, the other,
they love it,
and it comes from the other side, and everyone's getting a really good kick out of this, and it's really getting productive and all. I find that fascinating, and I just love this idea of I think this all goes back to win the hour, win the day, because you're creating just something and you're just opening up your eyes and saying, okay, here we are. What are we doing? How are we doing this? And how do we reduce this time and what we do?
Yeah, and you were so interested, as I mentioned earlier, about the 25 hours back a week that our clients often tell us they get us. And what I would ask you, friends of the podcast here, is what would you do with those 25 hours back a week? Like imagine, just sleeping in on Sunday and relaxing and enjoying your time with your family. And because, there gets to be a point, I know I was there, where it was sort of like anything that wasn't work was an interruption to work, right? And so to really take that breath and to really just be relaxed when you're relaxed and, say, okay, imagine what will I do with any Friday I want to take it off, or just really get to that next ambition that I painfully have been neglecting for years. And I'm so excited. I know it would be a big thing in my marketplace and it would be fun doing it. Just imagine what you would do with those extra 25 hours a week.
Yeah. And the other side of that is as well, what people do is people forget then how to have fun. Yeah. They forget to have how to relax because they're so busy trying to work and saying, and every moment of every waking hour is like, okay, well, I have to do that and make sure I have that done. And whereas when you do it, and like I always remember my wife when we started Compass Media and it was small and we were just building on it. And she was saying, like, she'd say, oh, do you want to go out on Friday afternoon for some lunch? And I'd say, no, I can't. I'm too busy. And she said the whole idea of you starting your own business was that you were able to dictate when you worked. And I'm going, And it's yet again, it's moments like that you go, yeah, this is right. But I think you get overwhelmed by work when you're in your own business.
Well, you're so passionate about what you do.
That's exactly
right?
what yes.
Yeah. And then there's people supporting you or cheering you on. Your wife, probably you had talked with her at one point and said, okay, are you going to quit that job? And so then you want to do right by her. With my husband, he was like literally, he was almost annoying. He was such a fan of mine. He was so enthusiastic. And sometimes I think, well, I better get this together because he thinks I can do anything, right? So, and then I remember one night at 2:00 in the morning and I'm working and I thought, people fought and died for labor rights. Like there's laws in my country so that I wouldn't be working at 2:00 in the morning. And I quit a job where if somebody had asked me to work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 5 a.m. to 2 a.m., I would have indignantly, are you crazy? That's against the law. And here I was running myself down to a nub. And because you're just like, because here's the thing. If you guys hear yourself say this is the magic word, write this down. Once I get past this next thing, once I get past the holidays, once I get past this, once I get the website, once I get, things will be different, listen, that is a problem because that will never stop saying. And so the time is now. You need to make a change. Yeah,
it's like, as I always say, when I'm talking, I always say, when people say, it has to be perfect. And I says, it will never be perfect. It will never be perfect for the simple reason when you think you've got it to perfection, you'll say, it could have been a little bit better. So there's no such thing as perfection because we keep trying to make it better and better and better. And like, as you say, like I remember when I worked in corporate, if someone said to me, can you stay on till 7 o'clock this evening? I say, no, I'm finished at 5. End of story. I'm out of here. And here you are. And I was the same. I was that soldier. I was, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I still am to some time. I'm more of a night owl. But what I now do is I reverse it. So I don't start till maybe 11 or 12 in the afternoon, and I might work later that way. But that has been my choice to be able to do that, and I think that's the key here as well. But as you say, it's like, I think a lot of people will sort of say, I don't remember how to have fun because they've been so caught up in what they're doing. And it's only when you stand back from you say, you can relax now, you can take that time. And I think when you... and I would say to everyone, go get Kris's book, that Win the Hour, Win the Day. Look at her program, The Winner's Circle. It is just phenomenal what she's doing. And I just, and how good of it would it be to get 25 hours back a week? I'm telling you, it has to be. If nothing else, that should drive you,
100%. Because your business should support your life, not consume it.
Totally. Kris, it has been an absolute pleasure sitting and chatting with you today. It has been so entertaining, enlightening and insightful because even I've sort of gone, okay, I need to stand back here and I need to look at a few things. And I think that's the key here, and I hope that's the message that comes across to everyone who is listening. Kris, how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more and connect and chat with you? Yeah, you can reach out, say on LinkedIn, and tell me you heard me on this fantastic podcast. A friend of Alan's is a friend of mine. You can check out, our www.winthehourwintheday.com, or check out Free Gift, GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com. Free Gift from Kris. We just put some goodies in there for your listeners, Alan, even a few things that we still charge for. So there's something really special in there. You should check it out. So those are some ways to connect with me. Brilliant stuff. And of course, we are delighted to have you on the podcast, and we wish you continued success. And thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and chat with us today. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Well, thank you for trusting me with your audience, Alan. I appreciate it. And I have one more question that I'm going to ask you. And this is the question I've asked all of our guests on this podcast over the last number of shows. And that question I ask you is, if you had the chance to invite someone to dinner, whether it be past or present, who would it be and why? I think I would be interested in Jeff Bezos from Amazon, because I noticed way back in the beginning when he's just doing books, like the sophistication of the system, no one saw it coming to where it was going today. But even then I was like, wow, they're sending me a book and they're sending me all these email alerts to keep me emotionally engaged in the product. And I started copying that when I was working with my clients, even way back then. So his vision for systems and stuff like that, not so much now because it's such a beast, but the infancy stage, I would have loved to have more meaningful conversations with him. And I think the other one, which, not to get political, because I'm Canadian, so I don't know where people are in this, but I always found it very fascinating when you saw Barack Obama on television, and that despite anything going on, the tension, he was always very relaxed and could ease people around him, and was really a powerful communicator on the fact that you never saw someone get his goat. Whereas I know for myself, I would maybe have a smile on, but you would see that
as my mother would say, my tone dictated that you just asked a stupid question, right? So I just thought he was so smooth at crazy scenarios where he just came out and looked like he had it all together. So I think I could learn a lot from him on how do you keep your cool when there's no cool to be kept.
Oh, and I tell you, that would be some dinner table. And I'm going to say this to you now, and I'm being very serious here when I say this. If you do ever have that dinner, make sure I'm invited to it.
Okay.
Kris, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. Yet again, as I said, the website is winthehourwintheday.com. Free gift from Kris, I think.
Kris.com
is the other website as well. And also don't forget to connect with her as well on LinkedIn. Kris, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast. And we shall talk to you very soon. Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast, and hopefully you learned some great information and also insights from our guest today. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. And all of our podcasts are available on all the usual podcast providers, including Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Mixcloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we would be delighted if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as we're always thrilled to receive your feedback on any of the programs. You can also subscribe to the podcast there so you never miss an episode as well. And if you'd like the show notes for this episode or for any of the previous episodes, please log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please do get in contact with us. All you have to do is email us at smtalks@compassmedia.ie. And if you'd like to find out more about the services that Compass Media provide, from social media marketing and training to podcast services, please visit our website for more details. You can also reach out and connect with me across all of the social networks, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I will personally answer every one of your requests. That's about all for today. I've been Alan Hennessy from Compass Media for the Social Media Talks podcast, and we look forward to talking to you next week. And as I always say, be social. So until next week at the same time, bye-bye.
Social Media Talks podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.